Welcome back. All right, so I want to talk about the Tampa Bay Lightning. Talked about Dallas earlier today. They, of course, were finalists in 2020 and lost to the Tampa Bay Lightning. Now, things have changed. It does feel like for the Tampa Bay Lightning that they're on a downswing. And it happens with every team that wins the Stanley Cup. It absolutely does. It happens with every team that wins it. Now, they're currently over the cap. However, I do believe that includes Brent Seabrook. He has, of course, LTIR that goes into effect once the season gets started. His contract expires in 2024. But Tampa Bay is a team that's been skirting the cap for years, right? So this is nothing new to them. But when you look at the exits, it feels like the exits this year combined with the exits last year, including last year, Palat leaving, it felt like was a huge loss. And this year, Killorn seems to be the big loss. He had 27 goals, 37 assists, 64 points. So losing that amount of points and really Killorn having a great year, that's going to hurt. Ross Colton, 16 goals, 16 assists last year. That one hurts as well. Corey Perry, there's some leadership there. 12 goals, 13 assists for him. Cole goes to Vancouver. 3 goals, 14 assists on the blue line for him. Maroon, 5 goals, 9 assists. And again, more of that leadership. The school bus line, of course. And Belmar, part of that as well. 4 goals, 9 assists, 13 points. Now, of course, some of these players on the older side, thinking of Perry, Maroon, Belmar, and in that part of the conversation. But honestly, we have a lot of players who've left Tampa Bay, and we'll see how things go for them. Elliott is gone as well. 12-8-2 was his record this past season with an .891 save percentage. So when we look at this lineup now, it kind of feels to me like Tampa Bay's not done, as in I think more depth guys are going to get added. When you look at this group, so down the left, you'd have Stamkos, you'd have Hagel. Both of them had very good seasons this past year. Stamkos, of course, is going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. We'll act surprised when it happens. Connor Sherry's an addition. Solid addition there, good depth forward. Logan Brown picked up an addition there. We'll see if he makes the roster or if Koepke ends up getting in position. There will be players in Tampa Bay's organization that move up from Syracuse to the main team. And there may be guys who are not on the board. It is not outside of the realm of possibility for Tampa Bay to find diamonds in the rough. They very often do it. It is part of how they've been a very good team for so long. Fortier's there as well. So that's your left-hand side. And again, looking at this depth chart, it feels like there's more moves that are going to be made. That this team is going to sign more guys. And again, I'm talking about like your AHL call-up variety, not necessarily players who are going to be everyday members of the lineup. Although they could add a winger here. I think they could add a winger here. I think there's definitely moves to be made. But again, once they're over the cap, I mean, even with Seabrook and LTIR, they don't have a ton of money to make it happen. Braden Point had a fantastic year. 51 goals, 44 assists, 95 points. And that may end up being a career high for him in goals, but 100 points, I think he can hit 100 points. Sorelli, one of the better second-line forwards in the NHL. Good, solid two-way presence there. Nick Paul, again, I don't think he's always had the amount of credit that he's deserved for being as good as he is, and we'll see whether or not he's able to follow up. What was a great year for him with Tampa Bay last year. Glendening joins the team. Again, as I mentioned in the Dallas preview, I like Glendening on the fourth line. Dallas, though, made him a healthy scratch of points during the playoffs, so it makes sense that he's left Dallas and now he's in Tampa. Finley, Concalves is there as well, or Concalves. And really, you know, this is a team that the first 4 lines is probably going to be how it turns out. Again, maybe Koepke ends up pushing Logan Brown down. Brown is a player that's interesting in that in St. Louis it looked like he had found a home, and then it just didn't work out. So there's still some talent there. We'll see if in Tampa Bay he's able to make it through. And then on the right side, of course, you got Kucherov. He had 30 goals, 83 assists, 113 points. Would I be surprised if Kucherov hits 110 points again? No, not really. And I don't think anybody else would be either. But then it gets interesting because you've got Jeannot then, I guess, ends up being the second-line guy because you got Asimont, you've got Archibald added as well. So behind Kucherov, kind of light on goal scoring, right? Jeannot, Asimont, Archibald, they're not going to score a ton of goals. So I do wonder if Tampa Bay is going to look to add there. It definitely seems like that's a pretty obvious spot they need to shore up before the season starts. Barry Boulet's right there. Barry Boulet I've talked about before. I don't think he got into very much last year at all because, of course, he got waived and kind of moved around the league a bit the year before. And then you've got Chaffee and you've got Groshev as well. So maybe a guy like Groshev comes into camp and wins himself a job right out of the gate. And again, with Tampa Bay, would I be surprised? No. Again, there may be a forward that's not on the board that ends up signing a contract with Tampa Bay and ends up in that maybe fourth line, maybe in a third line spot as well. But we'll see how comfortable they are with this lineup. Then you get into the blue line. The blue line's pretty solid, especially when you look at the top four. Hedman's still one of the best defensemen in the league. Yes, we're now into a portion of his career where he's probably looking at his absolute best years being behind him. But Hedman's going to be a very good defenseman for a long time to come. So maybe he won't be top 2 or top 3 of mind when it comes to defensemen, but still top 10, that kind of thing. Chernak, really good player. When he's out of the lineup, they absolutely miss him a lot. Sergachev's really coming into his own. So as Hedman's numbers may start to fluctuate a bit, Sergachev's absolutely fantastic. Perbix is one of those examples of players who it feels like kind of came out of nowhere. This is a team, though, that happens with. Hayden Fleury, now not quite as young as he was a couple years ago. That's how it works for all of us. Just sort of a spoiler alert there. You're not as young tomorrow as you are today. But yeah, Hayden Fleury, likely in the top 6, although Calvin DeHaan, who's an addition, may end up in that top 6 spot. Bogosian's right there as well, but they also still have Darren Radish. Radish came up for some games this past season. And so, yeah, we'll see how that all turns out. You also have Sean Day. You have Philippe Myers, who's cleared waivers and gone down to the minors it feels like the last 2 years he's ended up in the minors. But there's some good depth there. I don't think the blue line is bad. So when I look at this team right now with Tampa, I think to myself, yes, they'll be in the mix for the playoffs, but can we still look at Tampa Bay and say that is a Stanley Cup contender? And that's where I have some issue with it. The goaltending, we know the goaltending. It is Vasilevsky. But Johansson, if he's the backup, and he's the addition right now in net, is Johansson going to be a good replacement for Elliott? Can he play 24, 25 games in a season? Are they still looking for another goaltender? So to me, it looks like the goaltending might need a little bit more unless they feel Alnefeld's nearly ready. Tompkins is there as well, but he's on the older side amongst AHL goaltenders. And so in all likelihood, Tampa Bay doesn't end up giving him that spot unless he earns it out of camp, which should be a fun story. But I don't know that they're done with goaltending. And I don't know that they're done adding depth up front. It feels like there's more work to be done. Maybe another left winger, maybe somebody depth related down the middle. I think the blue line is pretty good. But again, you look at the players they've lost. Killorn's going to hurt. I think Colton's going to hurt. Perry wasn't as good for them this year as he was the previous season. Cole is a solid blue liner. I think, yeah, they may miss him a bit. Although with Perbix's development, Cole likely would have been on the third pairing, and you don't want to pay a lot of money for your third pairing defenseman. Maroon, Belmar, yeah, they're going to miss what Maroon brought. Maroon now, of course, with Minnesota. Belmar moving to Seattle in free agency. So we'll see. And again, the loss of Elliott, who has yet to sign anywhere at this point, but Elliott may end up retiring. It's going to be an interesting rest of the offseason for Tampa. But let me know your thoughts. Do you think Tampa Bay is done? And how do they deal with the fact that, cap-wise, they're really kind of up against it? Who do you add and where? Where do you see? And again, to me, I think a winger, maybe 2 wingers. But let me know your thoughts. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. And hey, thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.